Live video! Woohoo! I'm live. Although it's still weird over on Facebook land. I might actually be able to see the comments. Let's see. Hopefully I can see comments this time around and hopefully things don't go a little funky on me. Oh my goodness. Live office hours on. What day was that? On Friday, live office hours on Friday. I was not able to, like, halfway through Facebook was like, oh, hi, Tanisha. Halfway through my live office hours, it was like shutdown and craziness and Facebook. What are you going to do, huh? What are you going to do? It's probably because I'm constantly like, I don't know what Facebook is doing. I'm constantly complaining about Facebook, so they're just going to shut me down. It's going to say goodbye. And comments are working. Yes, comments are working on Instagram, or at least I'm seeing them on Instagram. I'm not seeing any comments on Facebook yet, but I also don't see that anybody is watching on Facebook. So who knows? Who knows what's happening there? That craziness. I'm also just going to pull up my land acknowledgement here while I'm waiting. While we're getting started. There we go. So, hello, good morning. It is just after 9 a.m. my time, Eastern time, which is Toronto time, or New York time if you want to like go by the States. It's Toronto time though. And I am Dr. Shannon Coates. I'm coming to you live from just north of Toronto, about 45 minutes north of, well, it depends on where in Toronto, because Toronto's a big place, right? So depends on where in Toronto. I'm approximately 45 minutes north of Toronto in, like, if you're anyway, whatever, it's all good. And the lands that I am on right now are the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabeweke, the Mississauga, and the Wendat Sioux peoples. And my pronouns, let's do that too. My pronouns are she or they. So that's me, and that's where I am. If you are viewing on Facebook and you feel so inclined, please leave me a comment so that I know that the comments are working. No problem if not. And if you're viewing this on replay, I mean, sure, leave me a comment if you want, but no problem. So today's Monday, 9 a.m., beginning of the week, for me anyway. I know, Tanisha, it is 9 p.m. probably? Are you guys 12 hours ahead? Something like that, right? So, I know it's not the beginning of the week for you. Your beginning of the week has kind of finished now. But anyway, beginning of the week here in Eastern Time. And so what I like to do on Mondays in my live office hours, I like to, I'll get over a little bit so Instagram can see me better. I like to talk a little bit about technical things from Central New York. Ah, the Haudenosaunee lands. Oh yeah, on the other side of the big lake. Exactly right. Exactly right. Oh, it's 7:30 in where you are, Tanisha. Yes, yes. So that's different than 9. For some reason, I thought it was like a 12-hour time difference, but it really depends on where you are. So anyway, big countries, big countries. So we are talking today a little bit about technique or technical things. That's what I like to do on Mondays. So what was in the back of my mind today was to talk a little bit about finding twang and understanding twang a little bit better, or exercises to kind of figure out different kinds of twang, but also placement. So I wanted to just kind of dive a little tiny bit into placement, the idea of placement. And we often think about, and I just wanted to kind of clarify that often when we're talking about something being, yeah, India, huge country. Oh, it's different now. Oh, but we do daylight savings too. So I don't know, we changed too. So I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, so we often talk about, you know, a sound being placed forward, or we ask for the sound to be more forward, or in the mask, or in the, you know, in the nasal, or forward in the face, or whatever. We ask for that. And often when a sound is too dark, we say it's too far back. You know, the sound is too far back in the, we describe a tonal outcome according to according to a position in somewhere in the vocal tract. So we describe a brighter tonal outcome usually, or a twangier tonal outcome as being more nasal versus a darker tonal outcome, or even sometimes like a swallowy or a woofy tonal outcome as being farther back, right? So we describe that tonal outcome rather than using brighter and darker or whatever other terminology we might want to use. We describe that tonal outcome using placement ideas, or ideas of placement. Also, I apologize. We just had our windows done and I haven't put my curtains back up yet because the trim still needs to be painted. So curtains haven't gone up yet, so I don't have any way to like make that less bright back there for those of you who are watching on Facebook. So you're welcome. It's a nice day out though. Look at the tree blowing in the wind. Okay. It's about -1 degrees Celsius here right now, which is beautiful weather. Love it. Nice and crisp, especially when it's sunny like this. Woo, so beautiful. Okay. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what that actually is in terms of when we're asking for placement. So when we're asking, usually when we're asking for something to be more forward placed, or to be farther forward in the face, or to be in the mask, or to be, you know, across the cheekbones, or, you know, narrow the eyes, or like all of these kinds of things that we talk about being like forward or farther forward or in the mask, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes if we ask for something to be twangier or brassier, all of those things, we're kind of thinking about it being more forward. And usually when we're asking for a more forward sound, Hi Full Voice Podcast, usually when we're asking for a more forward sound, really what we're asking for is a narrowed vocal tract. And usually we're asking for a more narrowed vocal tract in the pharynx, usually, not always, but usually, often, when we want something to be more forward, we're actually asking, hey, what we're actually asking for is a more narrowed pharyngeal space, or throat, or neck, or however we want to call it, but basically the space from the larynx to basically about here in the vocal tract. So that is actually the space that we're asking, usually, that we're asking people to change in order to create a more forward sound. And when something is too far back, usually, not always, but often, it's because we've actually got too much open space here in the pharynx. So I got too much space here. I also created a lot of space in my mouth too, but you can see this is the part of the vocal tract that we're actually hearing as being too open. So it's too far back, the sound is too far back when we hear that the vocal tract, this part of the vocal tract is likely too far open. When we don't have enough brassiness or twang or forward or ping in the sound, or it's not, or the sound isn't, when we want the sound to be more farther forward or in the mask, we're generally asking folks to change. And when it does actually start to be farther forward in the mask, what's generally happened is we've narrowed the pharynx in a way. So I wanted to just get that anatomy out there, the physiology and anatomy out there, and then a couple of exercises, a couple of thoughts around exercises to work on twanginess, if you will, brassiness, more forward placement, blah, 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 all that stuff, which, remember, is usually related to narrowing here in the vocal tract. And when we actually, so when we hear in a sound that it's too nasal, you know, take a listen back to one of the lives I did a while ago about the soft palate. So when we hear that something is too nasal or too brassy or too far forward, usually what's happening is we've got an over narrowing or an over shortening. The larynx might be too high, the constrictor muscles might be a little too engaged, or the tongue might be too far back, part of the tongue might be too far back. So we might have, we likely are hearing an over shortening, an over narrowing, an over smallening, and smallening, a devolumizing of the pharynx, of this part of the vocal tract. It's not usually related to what's happening in the mouth or the upper part of the vocal tract. Sometimes it is, but not usually. Usually what we're hearing is this part of the vocal tract, the pharynx, the lower resonator, I usually just say pharynx, but maybe you might have heard it referred to as like container one as part of the resonator, the basement, the bottom floor. This whole part here basically is what we're referring to. So some exercises to, when we're addressing placement, some exercises to work on that then are going to be exercises where we're working with the shaping of this part of the vocal tract. Now the tongue also will have some things to do with that. There will be parts that have to do with, you know, the front part of the vocal tract or the mouth, of course. But a place to start is with what is happening here in this part of the vocal tract. So a couple of exercises or thoughts, some things to play with this week, if you're interested, about to change the placement of the sound. And one of those things, I have done some demos of this kind before, but one of those exercises would be to create different kinds of sound with your mouth closed, and by changing, and so from outcome, right? So, sorry, so, let me just say that again. Let's go from the outcome, from the tonal outcome. We're going to ask for different kinds of tonal outcome with the mouth closed. We're going to demonstrate it first. We're not going to say, in terms of teaching, we're not going to say like, hey, I want you to do nasal sound and then not nasal sound with your mouth closed. We're just going to do this. We're going to say, repeat after me, basically. Do what I do. So here's the exercise. We're going to do or on one pitch, and we're moving back and forth. You can see that I'm exaggerating a little bit. I'm exaggerating what's happening in my jaw a little bit, but really what I'm playing around with here is what's happening here in the pharynx. You can't, there's no way to divorce what's happening in the mouth from what's happening in the pharynx. I mean, it's very challenging to divorce the two parts of the vocal tract from each other. So if I'm changing something in my pharynx, I am also likely changing something in the upper part of the vocal tract as well. They go together. So when I say like I'm moving this part, I am definitely also moving this part too. You're likely not changing just one part of the vocal tract. It's just too intertwined to, you know, to separate parts out like that. But it is useful to think this way. So we have the movement, and then after they've done that a couple of times, where they're just playing through those different kinds of sounds. It can be on a sliding scale, it can be on one pitch. If there's a specific pitch in a song, for example, that is getting overly nasal, too far forward, or is too dark, you can play on that specific pitch with the mouth closed, playing with like all the different shapings and the different colors and the different placements that I can have for that pitch. So I'm going to move that back and forth. I'm going to have this playing, sorry, and then and let's go. Then I'm going to get a little bit tactile about it. So you might ask them to describe what does it feel like your tongue is doing? What does it feel like your jaw is doing? What does it feel like your larynx is doing? And you might get a little tactile in terms of literally feeling under the tongue and the throat. So you can do this guy and you have feel what's happening with my tongue. I can feel my tongue moving around, and I can feel my pharynx changing shape as well. I can feel my larynx possibly moving around. I can feel a little bit of like narrowing happening in the pharynx. I may not be able to feel it, but you likely will be able to, and your students likely will be able to feel that as well. And then you can move into some kind of medium for that, right? So we can say, okay, so when you're in that like spot, that's all the way over to like 100% brassy, or 100% twangy, or 100% nasally, however you want to call it, or 100% forward. So you can have that as a 100% forward sound. And then when I'm in the that's 100% back, or 100% dark, or 100% lofty, or 100, whatever, however you want to call that. Because it's like that's, so we put this on this scale of like 100 and 100%. So now I'm going to ask for like, say I want to get a little bit farther forward. So I'm going to take that scale, I'm going to see like, can you be 75% forward, twangy, brassy, in the mask, whatever you want to call it, bright. Can you be 75%? So you're like, maybe that's my 75%. So now I'm going to open my mouth into the vowel that I want. Or if, say I'm trying to get a little bit darker, maybe I'm trying to find a darker color or a farther back placement. Maybe I'm too brassy on something. I'm going to then do the same thing. So can I have, rather than 100%, like find that 100% dark, and now, or 100% back, or whatever you want to call it, and now move that into 75%. Oops, excuse me. Sorry about that on Instagram. So 75% maybe, or maybe even 50%, but you're going to just play. So we're going to find that again. Maybe that's my 75%. So that still might be too dark, or maybe that's the color that I want. So then I'm going to go into the word that I'm looking for. So yeah, maybe I was getting that one, yeah, maybe I was way too nasal forward in the mask, brass, blah, 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 whatever you want to call it. So now I'm going to be like, yeah, yeah. I'm going to kind of landmark where my 50% is, or 75%, or whatever that percentage is, and move out of the exercise into that specific pitch and that specific vowel that we're working on. And you can use that same kind of idea, moving between the 100% to 100%. You can use that same idea for entire sections of a song. You can use it for entire, for like the verse, maybe the verse we want it to be, 50-50. Maybe it wants to be right in the middle of that twangy, or that 100% forward and 100% back. Maybe it wants to be 50-50. And then maybe when we get to the chorus, maybe the chorus wants to be like 75% bright, or 75% forward. So maybe we apply that. Oh, you're so welcome. But maybe we apply that then to an entire section of a song, or maybe we apply it to an entire song, or maybe a specific character. So if I'm a specific emotion within a character, or maybe a whole character. So maybe a whole character in a show is actually going to be like just to the edge, maybe 60% brassy, or 60% forward, farther forward than what I would forward, which really means narrowing, but farther forward than what I would be if I were, just singing it sort of more as myself. Or maybe if I was singing it as an older person. So if I was, as an older person, I might want to, like if the character is an older person, we often associate that richer tone quality with like an older, I mean like middle-aged. So like a mother figure, we often associate that with a little bit of a darker, richer sound, not always, but let's say. And then say, for example, you're singing Galinda, right? If you're singing Galinda, I mean, who originated that sucker? The original bright forward singer herself. So like we tend to brighten and be forward. So that might feel like a 75% forward, brighter sound as when I'm singing that character than what I would do if I were just singing it as myself, for example, right? So there's a way. Oh, there is. Oh, sorry, Allison. Yeah, I can see the comment, but I'm sorry about the interruptions. I don't know what's going on with Facebook. I've got some weird stuff going on there. I'm sorry. I think I might need to do a whole reload of my laptop. Yay! Anyway, Instagram, yay! So that's something to consider this week. Just something to consider when you hear in yourself, when you hear, when you're evaluating a sound and you're thinking, okay, that's a little bit too forward, or it's a little too dark. Oh yeah, sorry. You can also apply this to specific vowels. So if I've got a singer who is constantly over darkening that ah vowel, for example, maybe I'm a classical singer, so classical singer, I'm constantly over darkening. That's too far back. I want it to be a little bit far forward. What am I going to do? So I found that brighter, farther forward, and then I transitioned into my off from that brighter forward just by switching around what was happening in my vocal tract shaping. So this is useful in any style, whatever style you're working on. It's just a useful way to kind of play and put some percentages on some sort of landmarks, if you will, to kind of landmark, okay, this is what 100% dark feels like, or back, or blah, blah, blah. And this is what 100% forward feels like. And then start to apply that into vowel shapes, into stylistic choices, into emotional choices, into, you know, characteristic choices, character choices, into color choices, into poetry choices. Like all of the choices that we make, we can start to create these kinds of tonal outcomes and colors by choice if we want to. Yes. So something to consider this week. Have fun. Play around with the mouth closed. The reason I'm asking you to play around with the mouth closed is because when we're playing with the mouth closed, we take a whole bunch of the shaping and vocal tract shaping options just right off the table. And similar to what we do when we do NG exercises, for example, or any SOVT exercises. So actually, we just take the mouth shaping option, we take a whole bunch of that. Like, we still have the jaw. Obviously, the jaw can move up and down, but we lose a lot of the articulatory options from having this closed, right? So then we will tend to be able to sort of isolate a little bit more explicitly, a little bit more intentionally. We will be able to isolate what's happening here in the vocal tract a little bit better. We'll be able to kind of have better isolation. We tend to get a little caught up with what's happening at the front of the mouth and what's happening sort of here forward. We tend to get a little caught up with that, and to the detriment of, you know, or the neglect, if you will, of what's happening in the other parts of the vocal tract. So that's something to just consider. Have fun with it. Let me know how it goes. I will check on this Facebook thing and just see what's going on. Maybe I just need to reload everything. Oh, and I am talking about testosterone-influenced voices on Wednesday at my next pop-up. So POPUP Voice Ped class, if you are interested in understanding what big old larynxes with big vocal folds, with chunkier vocal folds, what their options are in specific pitch ranges, which will then help you to be able to guide a little bit more easily and understand what's happening a little bit more easily in lower singers, then that may be a class that you would like to check out. Like I said, it's on Wednesday. And you can, if you can't attend live, if you register in advance, you will get the video and you'll be able to watch it. So, yeah. All right. Take good care. Have a good week. I'll see you on Friday. Probably. Let's end that one.